Hey guys, this is 101 R. Smith, and I'm back with a review. A review that really is over 3 years in the making. Today, I'm looking at the Master Grade Sazabi Ver Ka, the reimagining of Sazabi from Char's Counterattack. Now, I know you guys might be a little worried, you might be confused because you're like, Reggie, where's your typical setup? And quite simply and quite honestly, it's not here for the beginning because
this box is fucking huge!
this is a big undertaking, and that is just an understatement in and of itself. The Sazabi is one of the most biggest master grades that are out there, and this thing is designed and built like a shit brick house. This thing is huge. This is, outside of the perfect Zeong, this is probably Char's biggest suit in the entire series. And the fact that they were able to engineer this, well, they did it before with the original Sazabi, but the fact that they were able to engineer this and turn this into a functional master grade is beyond reckoning, and that's what I'm here to find out. This is Char's final suit from Char's Counterattack, redesigned by Hajime Katoki, giving a whole new kind of twist to it, because as with the new grade Ver Ka, when I reviewed that about 3 years ago, a lot of people had to consider that the greatest master grade ever. Now, I reviewed that in 2018, and that kit came out in 2013. So this kit came out following that. Now it's just kind of looking at that and trying to see, it's been a few years. Have there been kits that have been able to surpass both the Nu Gundam and the Sazabi? It's possible. As technology progresses forward, things will get better. But are there some gold standards that were put in the past that sometimes you just can't beat? And it's kind of asking the question, does this thing stand up? Because I've heard some criticism that a lot of people don't even like the inner frame on this thing, which baffled me because I don't understand, but we're gonna have to find out here, because this thing is built, this thing has psycho frame, this thing has gimmicks, this thing has weapons out of the ass. So to see where all the money went to is going to be very interesting, to say the least. And I hope it's worth the $100+ you're going to have to pay for this thing, because Sazabi Ver Ka is not cheap at the slightest. But while we're getting to that, why don't we open up the box and see what we have here. All built up, and we have Char's ultimate suit, the Sazabi from Char's Counterattack. And I gotta say, this thing is a behemoth. I can't get over how big this thing is, and the color choices too, because quite honestly, this isn't just a red Char suit. No, this thing has a total of 4, technically 5 different shades of red being used, from a salmon to a hot rod red to the Sazabi red. And then if you include the decals and the vinyl that was included in here, because it uses the same technique that the Nu Gundam had, where it uses a different shade using vinyl stickers. However, I will say that those were implemented a lot better here and adds a different depth, rather than with the Nu Gundam Ver Ka, where it just hit a lot of bad nubs. As well, you get a nice gloss black that's used, you get like a mustard yellow, and then you've got 2 tones of frame. You've got the basic gray Xeon inner frame, and then you've got a nice kind of molded silver. It's not too ugly, but it's not shiny, but it does help to pop out. As well, you've got some silver underlining in the inner frame. You've got the yellow. You've got clear parts. This thing was well built, well designed, and I gotta say that I love the breakup in the colors. It was used very well, it was designed, thought out, and it just looks amazing. But while it looks amazing, sometimes looks can be deceiving. So why don't we take a look at its articulation to see if it holds up the mantle of a Ver Ka. As we always do, we start with the head. The head is on a ball joint with multiple joints in its head. However, because of the design of the collar, you won't even get a full 90-degree spin, which is kind of baffling to say for this, but that head is well designed. The shoulder and the shoulder binder have its own hinge and can go out parallel to each other, and both the shoulder and the arm can go 360 degrees, no problem, with a nice snug fit into it. You're gonna get the typical bicep swivel with a double jointed elbow, and it comes with a nice cool feature. It has actually working pistons, so when you pose and move the elbow together, you're going to be seeing pistons going out and out. The hands are based on real grade, except much bigger, and I would say much well designed comparison to the Nu Gundam. The hands are tighter, they don't pop out, and they have a nice kind of joint peg that goes in that lets you hold the weapons. Surprisingly, the upper body can go and swivel 360 degrees. I thought because of all the weight, because this is a very top-heavy suit, I thought that wouldn't be possible, but alas, I'm happy to be disappointed here. As well as the legs they have up the front and side skirts can go out, and it uses a double jointed hinge swivel system. So it has the ability, but however, due to the bulk, you are not going to be able to get 360 degrees. It's just not be able to function if you want to hold that weight. The legs can go out, and you're going to get a beautiful double knee joint with shifting armor that goes out, as well as the armor that moves out when you move in. The toe is on its own joint, and it can go down, but not really up or sideways, so you're limited by the feet, unfortunately. Which I don't mind, because you want this thing to be stable, especially if this thing's just built. Next, we move on to accessories, and we start with the beam shot rifle. This thing is built with a multitude of gloss black, and you're gonna get a little bit of red and a little bit of gray in there. This looks great on a functional level. However, it is awkward to hold due to the design of Sazabi's hands and the butt of the gun itself. It has a functional shotgun feature, and it can be held up decently enough. However, it can be frustrating because you won't get that perfect right angle of holding it like you would a real gun. Trying to hold it upwards, you can get it done, but it just looks a bit awkward just because I feel like Sazabi wasn't really designed to be able to hold up things in a humanistic way, so they had to make some compromises in using the design. It works, and plus with the attachment on the side of the hand, it's never going to drop it unless the wrist skips out, which it does happen on occasion, but it's not as frustrating. Next, you're going to get the beam long rifle. Now this thing, I don't remember this being in Char's counterattack, but I could be wrong. This thing is a highly built shotgun rifle, built with a lot of gray and a little bit of red in there. Now, apparently, if you have the napalm function from the Sinanju, you can attach those parts there. We don't have that, so we're just gonna hold it up. And again, it looks a bit awkward trying to hold it up like a real gun because the butt of the gun is so big and Sazabi's hands don't quite fit in on a parallel angle. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to be dealing with this. However, you can do the cool pose from the background, and I think it was also from Char's counterattack. You can hold it on the side, and that's not being held by attachments. That is all being held by just Sazabi's hands, which is why I love these hands in comparison to the Nu Gundam. I can actually do things with them, and they're actually functional. They stay tight. Now this is the beam battle axe, and it's built similarly enough to the Sinanju. It just has the gray and the gloss black. Note that I will be saying that I've been using a lot of the beam effect parts from the Sinanju. The ones that come with Sazabi are green. As well, you're gonna get the nice shield, which just can be used as a weapon. It's beautiful. It has the gloss black, the red. It has two shades of red. It has the yellow. Unfortunately, you will have to use quarter slide decals for that one front, but it's worth it because you're gonna get a nice look. However, you're gonna get the long beam rifle effect parts, which don't really work well. You gotta use the shoulder and the elbow to hold it up because unfortunately, when you put it together, even with just one axe, gravity will weigh itself down, and unfortunately, it will give out over time. It just won't look as nicely, so you're gonna wanna use the compromise and just use the shorter beam rifle effect parts in order to deal with the weight. However, that won't be much of a problem with the other beam effect part because you do get two beam sabers that you can use. They pop into the arm using the notch on the hand, and you can hold them up pretty well. And they never get weighed down, they never get bogged down by weight. You can pose them well enough with the shoulders. And just like in the anime, you can host the beam sabers inside the wrist, so you can get kind of a cool kind of like Wolverine style with it. So it's functional in multiple ways, and also it works as really good storage. Up next, we have the fin funnels, and these were frustrating. These were some of the most detailed pieces I've ever built, to the point where they had to be dedicated their own session. It was that mind-boggling and the amount of detail that was put in. And usually I would hype detail, but when you gotta do 6 of these at a time, they can get pretty frustrating. They do open up. Once you open up one panel, they can open up and kind of fly in together as like a bit of a hinge system. And you're gonna get gray, reds, and silvers built into it. It's well thought out design, a bit too much, but the saddest part is the Sazabi by itself does not come with effect parts that will allow you to shoot out the fin funnels all at once, which is a bit of a disappointment that you have to get that as an add-on. But I guess they decided to do that in order to save costs, which does work on the long term, but it would be cool to reenact some shots from Star's counterattack and have all 6 fin funnels flying at you at once. It just would have been nice to have that as a functional detail. Finally, the thing that Hajime Katogi has with his model kits is that ever since the advent of the Unicorn Gundam, his model kits have to have some sort of transformation. Whether it's the Unicorn, their new Gundam with its psycho frame bursting out of its inner frame. We have a transformation for the Sazabi here, where you get to open up panels and reveal more boosters and more inner frames, as it kind of acts like vents where it can burst out and take all that residual heating from going so fast. It does look great, and it does show off the beauty of the inner frame of Sazabi, because a lot of this would be hidden. You wouldn't get to appreciate the build quality and all the time you put on the inner frame, which I am personally a fan of. However, it is a bit of a chore to put together. You gotta separate the shoulders out in a certain way that allow for it to fully hatch up, and sometimes the legs don't quite cooperate with you, which is frustrating. I like the design, I love the thought, I love the concept, but this wasn't really done well with execution in my opinion. However, we do get to see the inner frame, which a lot of hardcore fans would like to see in their master grades, so I understand that functionality. It's just kind of baffling that we feel like in this age, every single time Katoki gets a hand on a model kit, because Unicorn was so popular, every single kit has to have some sort of transformation. When, yes, we want the high detail, but we don't always need a transformation. And of course, it wouldn't be a pairing if we didn't have both Char and Amuro. I will say, between the Nu Gundam and the Sazabi, I do love the presence of Sazabi, but Nu Gundam was a bit more of a straightforward build, while still having a lot of the detail that Sazabi had. And even though I built this kit almost 4 years ago, it still holds up minus the dusting, but it gets a lot of action. However, I will say Sazabi has better accessories, better functionality, and the fact that its hands were much more articulated and a lot more functional than Nu Gundam's, because I've lost fingers, it's gotten loose over time. It's a give and trade between the two. They are both equally of high quality, but it's what you want for. You want a nice cool Gundam, or you want a menacing one-eyed suit. It really depends on what you want, whether you're an Amuro fan or a Char fan, but it just depends on what you want. I would get both in my opinion. We're at the end of the review, and I gotta say with Sazabi, this was one of the most interesting builds I have ever had. This took a month to put together. Between work and the amount of detail that goes into Sazabi, it took that long. I thought I would have this out in 2 weeks. It took all of July just to get this together, which tells you the amount of time, care, and attention you would need to put in just as a straight build. So that's not including painting or any details you want to add, like water slides. This was fun. This was very different from most of the Gundam kits I built. You know, I love my Gundams, but sometimes you need to break up the monotony with something different, and this is something very different. So take your time with it. It has a lot of detail, great accessories, but it has a few kind of nitpicky issues that I have with it. You know, the fact that I can't hold up a gun properly, it can be a bit frustrating. The front skirts can pop out. The yellow trim on the crotch can pop out easily. Those are like little frustrations, and then probably the biggest is the fact that I can't use the fin funnels the way I want to. You can't have them popping out and blasting in front of everyone. And there's no dedicated action base to this, which is kind of baffling in the fact that Nu Gundam had an action base coming with it. However, you might be kind of worried to want to put this on an action base because of the weight. The legs don't quite work with you because of how much mass there is. So you might be inclined to want to get an action base, but there's always that fear, oh, I don't know, man, this is kind of heavy, it might break. So it's up to you. It can pose, maybe not well, below the waist, and there is a great amount of detail. So in terms of style ranking, I will give Sazabi an S.
Savage.
This is one of a top tier master grade. It still holds up. I was baffled. I was surprised when people said that some people thought that the inner frame is out of date, when really, when you think about master grades in the last 5 or so years, we're moving away from detailed inner frames and going for detail in the armor and functionality and posability. This is kind of like that kind of nice bridge where you get functionality and posability at the same time without compromising the inner frame. A lot of people are getting frustrated with that, and I understand because it's kind of moving away from what the master grade was originally designed. Now, a lot of detailed inner frames are just dedicated to real grade and perfect grade. So, you want to detail this up even more? This is a good hotspot. But as I've been saying, take your time. Enjoy the build. Have fun with it. And just appreciate what a masterpiece Sazabi Ver Ka is. This is probably one of the best monolite suits I've ever built, and it definitely makes me want to go back and check out some new ones, because I got a feeling that monolite kits have a lot of different building than you will ever have with a master grade Gundam. Not that master grade Gundams are bad, but sometimes you want something different, and I definitely get that vibe. This is huge, this is different, and you can take that 100 plus price tag. I would get this. This is 101 Smith, and thanks for the review. Thanks for seeing you, and take care, and peace.